You're driving home after spending a few hours with friends. Nothing bad happened. No argument. No awkward moment. Everyone laughed. The conversation flowed. By all appearances, it was a good night. But the moment you're alone again, something strange happens. Your shoulders drop. Your mind goes quiet, and a kind of heaviness sets in. Not sadness, not exactly. Just exhaustion. Sometimes it shows up even sooner. Maybe you're still at the gathering, smiling, nodding, keeping up with the conversation. But somewhere in the middle of it, a small thought appears. I need to go home. And you don't always understand why. Because you like these people. You wanted to come. You even enjoyed parts of it. So why does being around others sometimes leave you feeling like your energy has quietly drained away? If this happens to you, it can be easy to assume something is wrong, that you're antisocial, or overly sensitive, or somehow built for the world differently than everyone else. But the truth is much quieter than that. Your brain isn't malfunctioning, it's protecting you. And once you understand what's actually happening beneath the surface, this experience starts to make a surprising amount of sense. Because socializing isn't just conversation. For the brain, it's a full-body process. Every interaction contains dozens of invisible signals, facial expressions, tone changes, pauses between sentences, micro-reactions that flash across someone's face for half a second. Your brain is constantly reading them. Not consciously, but automatically. It's asking silent questions the entire time. Are they comfortable? Did that joke land? Did I say too much? Should I speak again or let the moment pass? Most people's minds do this to some degree. It's part of how humans maintain connection. But for some people, the monitoring becomes more intense. Not because they want it to, because somewhere earlier in life, paying close attention to social signals became important. Maybe approval mattered a lot in the environment you grew up in. Maybe small mistakes were noticed quickly. Maybe harmony in the room depended on reading other people carefully. When that happens, the brain adapts. It learns to watch, to scan, to stay alert. And while that skill can make someone thoughtful, empathetic, and emotionally perceptive, it also requires energy. A surprising amount of it. So during a social interaction, part of your mind isn't just enjoying the moment, it's working, quietly observing, adjusting, calculating the emotional temperature of the room. And after a few hours of that, your nervous system simply wants to rest. That's when the drained feeling appears. Not because you dislike people, but because your brain has been running in high awareness mode for longer than it can comfortably sustain. There's another layer too. Social environments are unpredictable, even when you're with people you trust. Conversations shift direction. Someone asks a question you didn't expect. A topic appears that carries emotional weight. The rhythm of the room changes suddenly. For the brain, unpredictability requires constant adjustment. And some nervous systems are especially sensitive to that. Not fragile, just highly responsive. When someone has a more reactive nervous system, their mind processes more information from the environment. More sounds, more emotional cues, more subtle shifts in tone. It's a little like having the volume knob on the world turned slightly higher than average. You hear more of it, you feel more of it. Which means your system also needs more time to return to balance afterward. This is why the quiet after socializing can feel so relieving. It's not loneliness, it's regulation. Your brain is slowly lowering the volume again. Another reason this pattern shows up has to do with something more subtle: identity. In social spaces, people often adjust themselves without realizing it. They speak slightly differently depending on who they're with. They choose certain stories. They soften certain opinions. This isn't fake, it's human. But for some people, the adjustment runs deeper. You might notice yourself becoming the listener in most conversations, the calm one, the agreeable one, the person who keeps the energy smooth. And again, this often begins early. When someone learns that being easy to be around keeps relationships stable, they naturally step into that role, the quiet, emotional stabilizer. The problem is that holding that role requires attention. You're not only expressing yourself, you're also maintaining the emotional balance of the interaction. And even when it's done with kindness, it can be tiring, because the brain knows something your conscious mind rarely notices. It knows that part of you is still on duty, even while you're smiling. But here's the part nobody tells you. This experience often changes as people move through different stages of life. In younger years, social exhaustion can feel confusing. You assume everyone else must be handling interactions effortlessly, while you're secretly running out of energy. But as people age, something interesting happens. The brain becomes more selective. It begins filtering social environments differently. You might notice that some conversations drain you quickly, while others don't drain you at all. Hours can pass with the right person, and you feel completely fine. That's because the brain gradually learns which spaces require performance, and which ones allow relaxation. And when the mind feels emotionally safe enough to stop monitoring itself, the entire experience of socializing shifts. But the tendency to recharge afterward often remains. Not as a flaw, more like a rhythm. The brain has one more trick here. After intense social input, it seeks something familiar, predictable, quiet. This is why people sometimes crave small rituals after being around others. A quiet drive home, sitting alone in a room, watching something simple, scrolling aimlessly, even just lying down without talking. To an outside observer, it might look like withdrawal, but internally, it functions more like an anchor, a return to baseline. Social environments ask the brain to process layers of information all at once. Voices, expressions, reactions, emotional nuance. Alone time removes those layers. The mind can breathe again. In a way, it's similar to stepping out of a crowded room into fresh air. Nothing dramatic happened inside, but your body still appreciates the quiet outside. There's another piece that often goes unnoticed. People who feel drained after socializing are frequently the same people who notice details others miss. They sense tension before it's spoken. They recognize subtle emotional shifts. They can tell when someone's "I'm fine" doesn't quite mean it. That awareness makes them thoughtful friends, careful listeners, and emotionally perceptive partners. But perception always carries a cost. The more the brain detects, the more it processes. And the more it processes, the more it eventually needs rest. So the exhaustion isn't random. It's the natural recovery phase of a mind that notices a lot. Which is why the quiet afterward can feel almost comforting, like returning home after a long day, a familiar room, an old friend, a place where the brain doesn't have to read anyone anymore. It can simply exist. When people first notice this pattern in themselves, they sometimes interpret it as a social failure. They wonder why they can't stay energized the way others seem to. But that comparison misses something important. Not everyone experiences the social world the same way internally. Some people move through conversations lightly. Others move through them with depth. One isn't better than the other. They're simply different ways of being human. And if you're someone who feels drained after socializing, it doesn't mean you dislike people. It doesn't mean you're distant. And it certainly doesn't mean you're broken. More often, it means your brain has spent years learning how to pay attention to emotional nuance, to the small signals that keep relationships working. And when that kind of mind finally gets a moment of quiet, it does what any thoughtful system would do. It rests. Not because something went wrong, but because it did exactly what it was designed to do.